Manchester United make the trip to Fulham live on Super Sunday, but will they be doing any late business in the transfer window? Ruben Amorim will hold his pre-match news conference later this afternoon. Let's join our reporter Daniel Khan, who'll be there for us. Daniel, it looks great in that brand new training ground. Will there be any brand new signings between now and the end of this transfer window?
Yeah, afternoon, James. I mean, I think there's been a lot of focus in terms of incomings. I mean, United have already done so much of their business in terms of those forward positions, bring in the likes of Benjamin Šeško, Matthias Cunha and Brian Mbeumo. But it seems the focus after that 1-0 defeat to Arsenal last week is very much on the goalkeeping section of the team, especially after Altay Bayındır conceded the goal he did against Ricardo Calafiori from that corner. And that has led to so much conversation over the last week around, do Manchester United need to reinforce in that goalkeeping position? Now, Ruben Amorim has been adamant he is happy with his three goalkeepers. Andre Onana was still out through not being match fit, and I think another week of training he could be fit for Sunday, which will ask Ruben Amorim that very question on Sunday. But the focus for Manchester United, whether they need to bring in a goalkeeper or not, has to be on outgoings in the next week or so, week and a half or so, until the deadline. The likes of Rasmus Højlund, who has been heavily linked with Napoli after a former Manchester United striker, Romelu Lukaku, who's picked up an injury in Italy. Højlund now looks perhaps more likely to go there, but Manchester United want an obligation to buy rather than an option. And then you also look at Alejandro Garnacho, still at the club with a week and a half or so until the deadline. The likes of Rasmus Højlund, who has been heavily linked with Napoli after a former Manchester United striker, Romelu Lukaku, who's picked up an injury in Italy. Højlund now looks perhaps more likely to go there, but Manchester United want an obligation to buy rather than an option. And then you also look at Alejandro Garnacho, still at the club with a week and a half to go. And there's a lot of conversation around, will Chelsea meet Manchester United's evaluation around Garnacho, their evaluation being around £50 million, James. And the question is, would United drop that with the deadline coming? The only counter I would say to that, James, and be very interested to hear what Rob has to say later, but for Manchester United and for the player, it's just as important for him as well, because just bear in mind, in the last week or so, he's been left out of the Argentina squad for their upcoming international. So he needs to get back to playing football if he has any chance of playing in the World Cup next summer. And I'm sure Rasmus Højlund will be thinking the same. But what we'll do, James, is ask Ruben Amorim all of these questions, look ahead to Fulham, see what they can build on from that Arsenal defeat last weekend, and I'm sure plenty more when we hear from him from just after 1:30.
Great stuff, Daniel. Thank you very much for now. Let's ask you that question that Daniel's posing there. There's a number of players, the likes of Jadon Sancho, Alejandro Garnacho, who are training on their own right now, missing the start of the season. How will they be feeling? Because it doesn't feel like we're very close to any of these deals being done in terms of outgoings, and we know United need these outgoings to materialise if they're to potentially bring more players in.
Yeah, I think what Manchester United are doing, they're staying very strong to their valuation. Their valuation is clearly very, very high. And of course, they're both still what you consider young players, especially Garnacho. And they want the right deal. They've brought in their players that they're incoming, but the outgoing, it looks as if it has to be the right prices. Now, I think as the window goes on, they'll drop what is their ideal price and maybe meet in the middle. So I can see Garnacho going. I can see Jadon Sancho going. Sancho more on loan, I think. I think Garnacho, I think a deal can be done there. And I think it's Manchester United need it. They need to get those players out, and they're very firm that they need to go as well.
So it appears that the majority of United's business is done with more incomings unlikely. If they were to strengthen in one area, would you be looking for a midfielder or a goalkeeper if they can only target one position?
Listen, I think Bayındır, after last week, of course he made a mistake, but I'm not one of those that he made one mistake in the game and, it's the end, get rid of him. No, he's a very good goalkeeper. He's proved he's won them games last season when he came in. I think that's not as urgent as a midfielder. I actually think a midfielder right now is more urgent than the goalkeeper. So I'll definitely be looking at midfield, because I think that's the one position that... Look at where Manchester United want to go. They want to be in the Champions League and fighting for titles. Your midfielder is going to be key to that more than your goalkeeper right now.
There's a lot of work for that midfielder to do, playing alongside Bruno Fernandes. Would you expect Benjamin Sesko to start this weekend? How much do you think he'd have benefited from a full week on the training ground with Amorim, and potentially tomorrow or Sunday we have the opportunity to see Mbeumo, Cunha and Sesko start together for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, the more I see Sesko, the more I think he's just got so many good qualities. That's going to add to Mbeumo's qualities. It's going to add to Cunha, Bruno Fernandes. I think the hard part is always the first few weeks as a player, and you're trying to get to know your teammates. But the big thing is not just to get to know their qualities. You know, when they'll see you. You know, when you make a run, do they see you or do they delay? You know, and I think he's playing with great players. And Sesko having a week's training, having time with the manager, having time to discuss with his teammates. I'm going to make this movement. I'm going to make this run. Find me. You know, those little discussions that happen in training is what I think is going to benefit Manchester United. Sesko, I think, is going to be ready. I would love to see him start the game now, because I think probably even if he plays 60 minutes, it's going to be better for him than playing, you know, maybe half an hour. I think that's the next step, but that's exciting for Manchester United. Mbeumo, Cunha, Bruno Fernandes, Sesko. I think, especially after last week, I thought they were exciting last week, but once they get it right, there's so many goals, there's so much creativity there. I think it's dangerous for most teams when they play Manchester United.
Ruben Amorim coming up for us later this afternoon on Sky Sports.
Man United keen to swap Chelsea player in Alejandro Garnacho transfer negotiations. Garnacho has been heavily linked with a move to Stamford Bridge after falling out of favour with Ruben Amorim. Manchester United reportedly mentioned a Chelsea player who could be used as a make-weight when negotiating Alejandro Garnacho's potential move to the London club. Garnacho, 21, has fallen out of favour with United head coach Ruben Amorim in recent months, having given an explosive post-match interview following the Red Devils' Europa League final defeat against Spurs back in May. Just days later, Amorim reportedly told the Argentinian to find a new club. The 21-year-old has since been training alone at Carrington, and it appears his days are numbered at United. Several clubs from Saudi Arabia, as well as Serie A champions Napoli and Premier League outfit Chelsea, have also been linked with a potential move for Garnacho. Currently, Chelsea appear to be Garnacho's most likely destination, according to various reports. BBC Sport reported earlier this week that United are braced for an offer from Chelsea and deem him to be worth more than £50 million. When speaking on the Here We Go podcast with Fabrizio Romano, Romano claimed the 21-year-old was willing to stay out of United's squad if they did not sanction a move this summer. Romano said, some clubs from Saudi Arabia were willing to offer Garnacho really big money, but no chance, and for Garnacho it is really easy. He goes to Chelsea, or he goes to Man United out of the squad. That remains the case. Garnacho is not scared about that, and his priority is very clear: Chelsea Football Club. On Thursday, Ben Jacobs issued a further update on the situation when he spoke on the United stand, explaining how Chelsea need to resolve Nicholas Jackson and Christopher Nkunku's situations before moving forward in their pursuit of Garnacho and Xavi Simons. Jacobs also reported that Chelsea's opening bid for Garnacho will be close to £30 million rather than United's asking price of at least £50 million. And that wasn't all, as Jacobs went on to reveal how Chelsea's Andre Santos, who spent the 2024-25 campaign on loan at Strasbourg, was also mentioned in discussions between the clubs. Jacobs said, Andre Santos has been spoken about. I don't think it's going to lead anywhere because Chelsea don't want to sell. That's another player that Manchester United appreciates. It's nothing more than that at this stage. Santos, 21, signed for Chelsea from Vasco da Gama for a reported fee of £18 million back in January 2023 before being loaned back to the Brazilian club. The 21-year-old then joined Nottingham Forest on a season-long loan in August 2023, but returned early in January 2024 after making just one appearance for the East Midlands outfit. Santos finally made his Chelsea debut against Tunis at the Club World Cup earlier this summer before playing against Crystal Palace in the Blues Premier League opener last weekend.